From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight as we preview the London game. Broncos versus Jaguars, 2-5 teams, and amazingly kind of mirrored seasons so far, right? They both lose their opener. They both battle back and win 2 in a row, and they're both on a 4-game losing streak currently. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I think the expectations were a bit lower, both with new coaches, right? But you just sort of wanted to see this season what Trevor Lawrence could be. You wanted to see how Travis Etienne, who, by the way, had a fantastic game yesterday against the Giants, how he would fit into things. Christian Kirk, one of their prize acquisitions in the offseason. They spent a lot of money in free agency. How that all sort of fit together. I think the expectations were low for Jacksonville, but when they got off to that 2-1 start, everybody said, well, maybe they could surprise people, right? We've seen the Giants, the Jets. We've seen teams that had low expectations surprise so far. But Jacksonville has, again, sort of regressed back to where I think most people thought they'd be, but yet they are favored in this game, Ben.
Well, yeah. Jacksonville, a lot of their problem has been situational football. You want to look at the game this past Sunday and Doug Peterson, passing on a field goal to go for something when the field goal would have extended the game to 7 and probably put it out of reach for the Giants. And instead, or at least made it a tie, even if they scored. Instead of doing that, passed on that, didn't get anything out of it, and they wind up, the Giants wind up with new life. And it's been a series of that over the course of this 4-game losing streak for them. So they've got a quarterback. They've got personnel to be able to win football games. For them, it's just been, just ridiculously poor decision-making from their coaching staff. I like what Mike Caldwell and the former Chiefs guy have done with the defense there in Jacksonville. I think their defense is pretty good. Honestly, I think the Jets' defense is probably a little bit better, but their defense is good. And I like what they've done, kind of doing it with a secondary. It's a bit shorthanded. They do have my guy Andre Sisco back there in the safety position. He plays really well. But they still need
Booma, local guy.
Right.
Yeah.
They still need some personnel on the defensive side of the ball. But Jags look like they're headed in the right direction. They do. They just need to shore up some of these decisions that they're making that may, theoretically are analytics based, but are blowing up in their faces over and over again.
Yeah. So it's funny because the 2 wins they have are blowout wins, right? And so you think about Jacksonville this season, and you're thinking like, oh yeah, the Colts game, they shut them out. They shut out the Colts 24-0, and then the Chargers. Wow. Remember Justin Herbert was just coming back 38-10. Yeah. And then every other game, just like the Broncos, have lost by 1 score. Only their losses are all by a touchdown versus the Broncos' losses, which for the most part all by 3 points, or right around there. So, 1 point against Seattle, right? But the point being here is they're, again, kind of mirrored situations. And for the Broncos, of course, they're looking to get this win because they're going to head into the bye week, and at least that's something to sort of build on. You lose this game, you go to 2-6. And I mean, again, you just know what that means with the trade deadline potentially on the other side, what that could mean for the team. But I sort of feel like urgency. We talked about that word in the last video we did for Broncos Country Tonight. Urgency is going to be big in this one. Who has more urgency on getting a win and getting to 3-5 versus a team that's going to be at 2-6 heading into a bye, knowing that it more or less ends your season?
Well, yeah, and then I guess it's apropos that you have 2 teams that are foreigners because the key word is urgent, right?
Nice.
So
nice. I'll give you a little bit on that one.
Welcome.
Give you a little bit.
I think that I do. It is about a sense of urgency to turn this thing around. With Jacksonville, there's a little bit more patience because they've seen flashes of it and they've got the quarterback. If you look at the Broncos with Russ hurt and everything else and him not playing up to the level that he's used to playing at, there's some serious concern and they don't feel faith in the coaching staff. The Jags coaching staff is going to be fine. They'll be there next year. They're going to be back. The Broncos coaching staff, we don't know that. And so that's really kind of sort of where this thing is at, is can you draw faith? Can this coaching staff figure it out and turn it around? And faith is dwindling in Broncos country by the day as with each passing loss. I mean, this team has held opponents to 19 points or fewer, across the board outside the Raiders game. And they've only won 2 games.
Yeah.
The offense can't seem to get above the 16-point threshold, and even then, the last couple of games has been less than that.
Right.
So it's a backwards trajectory on a lot of this stuff. So it's something that they've got to figure out, and you've got to figure it out quick. Jacksonville is not a get-right team like it used to be. They're a competitive football team. So you're going to have to come out there. You're going to have to play, and you lose this one, you're 2-6, and man, I don't know. You're going to win 8 straight to make the playoffs? I don't see that.
Yeah, no, I don't either. So at this point, this is. I mean, we really thought the Jets game, heck, I would have even gone back to the Chargers or Colts game, would be sort of that moment where it's like, okay, this is where it has to happen. But now you're right. I mean, you go to 2-6, and I mean, at this point, you are playing for who's going to be the building blocks of this team going forward beyond this season. Now, let's talk specifically about the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence has a 63% completion rate, 1,700 passing yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He can use his legs. He's also got 84 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns on the season. So the Broncos have had some problems at times, but I did think that they did a pretty good job against Herbert, who, again, I know he's a little banged up. He's not running as much as he used to. That's one of the biggest concerns I have right now is letting Trevor Lawrence, if you have everything else covered up, letting him sort of escape out and gash you for some big runs, because he definitely will do that. Travis Etienne had a monster game against the Giants. He started to round into form. They're certainly now tilting things his way over the last 2 games. Christian Kirk has been definitely better than I think a lot of people expected him to be. 458 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns on the season. So I think that they've got, just on the offensive side, they got some scrappy players, and you're 100% right. They are not going to be a pushover like I think we historically think about the Jaguars. This game is going to be tough for the defense there, because some of these matchups are not. They're not easy, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're a pushover. It's a winnable game, but they're all winnable games in a sense. But they aren't a pushover team. They're a competitive football team, and there are some things that you're going to have to do. The good news about Trevor Lawrence, he does turn the football over once or twice a game.
Yep.
And so there's going to be the opportunity for an interception or 2 there. The flip side of that is they play good football, and you've got to account for everything, because he is a mobile quarterback, and he will get out, he will beat you with his legs, and those will open up running lanes for these running backs, and you've got to shut those down. You've got to be gap sound. And if there's one thing, I love the athleticism of Alex Singleton, but the one thing that he has not been has been gap sound thus far at times. And you can't have Etienne ripping off big runs like Breece Hall did.
Yeah, they've got some good pass rushers too. Going on the defensive side of the ball, we all obviously know about Josh Allen. Super talented pass rusher. I remember they got Devin Lloyd also in the draft. He's had a great start to the season, 63 tackles so far. Also leads the team in interceptions from the linebacker position. Shaquille Griffin was one of their offseason acquisitions as well. So when I look at this team and what they're kind of put together is they're kind of built for next year. They're kind of built to see how things go this year, figure out if Trevor Lawrence is their guy, which I think so far you'd say probably there.
He's their guy.
Yeah, he's their guy. So you like what you're building. You're going to add a little bit more to it. They're in a lot of ways like the Jets and what we were talking about, as a team that's probably a year away or so. But again, the Broncos aren't performing to a level right now where you can build any kind of consistency, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to say, oh, well, this is the matchup offensively I think they can exploit. Because we've done that every single week. We've said, oh, this is the offense. This is the matchup where I'd exploit for the Broncos offense. Unfortunately, they really haven't been playing well enough to exploit anything. How do you build any kind of mindset of what they should do when it comes to this game?
Well, that's the question. That is the $1 million question. I don't know. I think you have to find your identity and go from there, and I don't think they have. I think we're 7-8 games into the season now, and you don't know your identity on offense. You just know it's bad, and that you don't want that to be your identity. So I think they need to figure that out. I think they need to find, what are we? What do we do well? And let's just keep doing that. And start there, and then we'll build off of that. And it just doesn't feel like there's any consistency or coherency to any of it, because there's nothing to build off of. What have they done well? I don't know. They got some chunk plays with Russ, but is that an offensive identity? I don't think so, and it's certainly not something that you can live by, die by. We saw it yesterday. They weren't able to get those chunk plays when they needed them. So, I don't think that. I think they need to figure out what it is that they are, what it is they want to be, and go out there and be that.
Yeah, and the Jacksonville, looking at some of their rankings, they're kind of middle of the pack when it comes to the run against the run, middle of the pack against the pass, and they give up 19.6 points per game. Now, again, that's buoyed by the fact they had a shutout against the Colts, who have now benched their starting quarterback, and they of course,
he's got an injury actually. Matt Ryan's hurt.
Right, sure, but they said Ellinger is going to start the rest of the year, so that tells you a little bit about where things are at. But that said, also against Justin Herbert, they had just a massive win there. So that might be inflated or deflated, however you want to view it. I look at this game as saying, I think you said it perfect. It's a winnable game. It is a winnable game. But the Broncos are going to have to do something that they haven't done, which is show some consistency. You're going to have to score 20, 24 points in this game. We just said Jacksonville gives up only 19.6 per game. And that's a bit of where you say, okay, maybe your defense can hold Jacksonville under what their average is offensively, but you can't count on that to be enough if you're only scoring 9 points, right? If you're scoring 14 points per game, you're just going to lose. This league isn't built off of a 14-13 kind of win most weeks.
No, it's just not anymore. And what you're seeing is the antithesis of the Super Bowl run.
Yes.
In 2015, where the Broncos defense was getting all these bounces and contributing to the scoring and helping pad that total a little bit in the end. And what you're seeing is the defense is just not getting those bounces right now.
Yeah, Jacksonville is scoring 21.4 and the Broncos have 14.3.
Yeah.
It's a touchdown difference.
But in Broncos country right now, that's an insurmountable lead.
It feels like the Grand Canyon.
You get out to 7-0 and as well, I don't know if we're going to be in this one.
Heck, even when they missed the extra point.
I know, and you're like, oh my God, that 1 point. That
might be it. And it wasn't, but it felt.
We joked before the game about the race to 16 points, and then
all of a sudden,
it was 13-9, and you're like, oh my God, the Jets are going to kick a field goal, get to 16, and win this game, and they did.
It's absolutely brutal. But so that's a little bit of what this is, and you of course want to see what the practice reports end up being, who can play. They're adding Marlon Mack to the offense. We don't know what his role is going to look like. But for the Broncos right now, I mean, again, it comes down to like what can you consistently build off of? I love the points that you made multiple times on Broncos Country tonight. Getting into the second half, can you script some things in the second half to give yourself an advantage? You're winning the coin toss. You're electing to defer, which I think a lot of teams like to do that. Mm-hmm. But then what are you doing with that? What are you doing with that advantage, if you will, of knowing that you're going to get the ball on the other side? Mm-hmm. And what the Broncos did, at least this last week against the Jets, is they came out passing on 6 straight plays out of shotgun when they had been finding some consistency and some success with running the ball, especially under center. Mm-hmm. They were getting 2 backs in the backfield. They were getting good blocking up front. It worked well for the offensive line. And, by the way, only gave up 1 sack. Mm-hmm. Didn't have nearly as many penalties. I'm just saying, like, build off of something.
Yeah, I'm there with you. We've suggested on this show for weeks now to do a mini script in the second half. Put together 7 or 8 plays just to kind of get a drive going, some chain mover type stuff to get a drive going, and do all that, and just trying to offer solutions. And it's an episode in futility. The Broncos have 5 points in the third quarter on the season. 2 of those came off a safety from the defense, and the other 3 came off a field goal after the defense caused a turnover and the offense went 3 and out.
Do you feel like the Broncos are going to win this game?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I really don't. I feel like that this is probably going to be a loss, and it's probably going to be a nail in the coffin for this coaching staff.
Okay. All right. We'll obviously break it down either way here on Broncos Country Tonight. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching.
Denver's going to win! You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.